All right. I think I think we're live. What is going on? I actually have been on vacation for a little while, and I'm energized. I'm doing things. What I realized was there was a very interesting project got released. There's always new projects being released, but this is the one that I'm going to dig into today. Spring Shell 3.1.0. Uh, it's one that I use a lot, and I've used it on stream here, and got some new releases. Got some new stuff. So we got some bug fixes here, and confirmation input does not show the option selected when oh, so we got another bug fix here. That's good. Awesome. So I'm going to try to take a look at that example. Right on. And that's cool. Then I'm going to, yeah, we're going to build a quick example. I'm going to upgrade some stuff. I'm just in the middle of upgrading. Option Boolean doesn't result to false. So let's just take a look at some of these, I guess is the best way to do it. I'm not going to stream for very long. I'm going to stream for about an hour, a little less than an hour, but this works. So let's jump into it. Um, so I want to do this native image. So what I've done already is I've upgraded to Spring Boot 3.1 as the starter project, and I upgraded the Spring Shell version to 3.1.0. This is my Initializer++ project. It's a project that I use to pull down after I pull down something from start.spring.io. I run these initializer plus plus steps and just kind of does the next step. After I've grabbed something from start.spring.io, there's some things that I typically do all the time, like change the version number, get rid of the description, um, yeah, change the project name. But I want to automate that. I've got my own um, default settings, my conventions, and I've now automated those conventions into this application. So you can follow along here. Initializer plus plus. There it is. I did a build earlier, but one of the things that I ran into was part of my build process was broken, and I think it was because of my SDK man RC. I'm running this locally on for one part of the build. I have a runner on a Mac that's running ARM64 in order to build that ARM64 for OS X. So all of these CLIs are getting delivered out here. And it's just a practice of doing what you're doing, taking stuff to production. That's what I'm doing. So not calling it a version 1 yet. It's still version 0. It's still um, kind of in the works. I'm not ready to call it a 1.0, but I'm also preparing to do some work with the awesome Mark Pollock next over the next couple of weeks around the Spring CLI. So I'm just getting some reps in as well. So here, what we've done, let's do this native build, uh, native compile. So you're asking yourself like, hey, what's the big deal about the version? Let me show you what the big deal is. SDK list Java. For ARM64, I don't get the latest version. 22.3.2 is available on most platforms. Hello, hello, Icon. Thank you so much for joining. It's good to see you. I'm all excited, rejuvenated, energized after a wonderful vacation. And yeah, now I'm back at it. So I don't get the 22.3.2, which is available on the other platforms. So I've made it now the default of 22.3.1. I want all of these releases that I'm pushing out. I would like them all to be built against the same JVM. Not really necessary, but if I'm trying to identify bugs and issues, it'd be good if there was consistent behavior. So let's use the same JVM. So that's what we're doing. So that's why we're doing this extra step because Yeah, it messed up. So now let's do this MVNW -P. I'm giving it that native option, and this will take some time. But what have I done? So this is a problem. Hey, build failure. It's because of the build info. Something didn't work. So which Java version? This is the same problem I had before. So why is it defaulting to 11.0.18? Why is it doing that? So I must have done an update somewhere because it should be SDK EMD to get, because I've defined it right here. So now with SDK ENV, I should be able to do this. So that makes me think that this is a problem where I run in here, I say, hey, install. Let's take a look at that plugin, the orb, Circle CI, SDK man orb. The orbs, right? And this is SDK man, setup SDK man, SDK man. Yep, that's the same one, right? Josh D. Holtz. Thank you, Josh. We're using it. So setup SDK man. It does the thing. SDK man install. Candidate inversion. No. So I think that I just want to run here on this one, on this resource class. I think I want to do SDK ENV, right? That's all I need to do. And then I wouldn't need this, but let's try that. So I think it'll fail. This build I think will fail, but now I'm making this change to do the SDK ENV because I have SDK man installed. I think we'll be okay. Get status, get add Circle CI. Can I do this? How do I remove a tag? Get tag. Is it -R or -D? Delete. Okay. And now we've got a new tag, and then let's get push origin v0.0.30. And that's going to kick off my build. So now I've got a tagged version. It's going to kick off my build. I want to run this here locally on the tag. I want to run this. And this will take a minute. Just testing things out, getting the latest version. But then what I should do is I have another project, the Spring Office Hours Helper. This is what I'd like to do. So what I need to do is I need to get this running. This service needs to run on my Spring Cubed environment. So I'm going to run it on these Raspberry Pis sitting over here. I've got some stuff in here I don't need. But what we're going to do over here is we're going to upgrade this one to the latest and greatest. And I have a show, so I need to use this tool today. So we're going to upgrade it. We're going to use the tool, and we're going to make sure that it's running and it works with the latest and greatest. Again, I don't have a lot of tests, and I'm sorry. I'll work on that. I will. I'll work on that. But we got to get to production. We got to get things going. I'll write tests later, right? Oh, dadgum. And now I'm just realizing that I've got a meeting here in a little bit. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave that there. Remind me, I've only got 15 minutes before I need to jump to another meeting. ChatGPT, remind me in 15 minutes that I've got a meeting. All right, so let's go fast. So that's running. This process is running, and it worked. So let's do target initializer version. Cool. I'm not going to push this version out. What I'm hoping is that because I did this release, I'm hoping that my Circle CI pipelines will work. So let's go take a look, and I can share that. Boop. Here we go. We can close these guys. We're done. So this is my Circle CI process. So the ARM64 native workflow that actually is getting ran. Wait, Mac OS ARM64. So that already ran, and that was better than this one. So I did fix the problem by adding the SDK env step, and everything else is working. So now it's building ARM64 native Linux image, and yeah, it took 2 minutes before. It took 4 minutes. So yeah, we're in good shape. So it created a GitHub. Uh-oh. No, that one's from before. So we are in good shape. So far, so good. So we can go take a look, and what we should have, because we created a GitHub release here as a part of our pipeline, we should now have a new version 3 or 0.0.30. So the OS X ARM64 version is the only one that got released. So that's a funny thing, is that my process only runs when there's a new version tag, and this one actually runs on this OS X ARM64 M1 machine here in my house, and that's the one that got completed first. Should it be that way? That's a good question. That's a good question that I just asked myself. Should it be that way? Maybe this is a good example of sometimes things in the cloud aren't always the fastest. They might be cheaper, not very often. In this case, Circle CI gives a very generous free tier. But yeah, running the build locally here in Kansas City actually resulted in a quicker release. The others should come soon. There we go. So the ARM64 release from Linux, this x86 image, that actually got processed over in GitHub. But we should have, so the ARM64 releases I'm handling on Circle CI. The x86 releases I'm handling over in GitHub, and I got a Windows release as well. So I've got native releases for these different architecture platform combinations. This is very interesting. Hello, Simon. Welcome. There was no go live notification. I didn't really publish. I kind of like said, "Hey, I'm going to go live," and I started the show, so I didn't really like give it a heads up. So maybe that's why. But I do agree, Circle CI is nice, and I am super happy. I'm also playing with GitLab and Circle CI, and I've asked the question. There's a few other things that I want to play with. Just get some example pipelines going. But what I think I'm going to do is kind of move them out of the repository like I have here. I'll show. I've got Circle CI configs and GitHub workflow configs. If I did GitLab, that'd be more mess. What I'd like to do is pull that stuff out of my repository. I don't want to have to add that to each repository, even though I've added it to my initializer plus plus. I don't want to have to add that. What I'd like to do is have that external to the repository. So when I create a repository, then it just gets its pipelines. I follow you on Twitch, but it stayed silent. Oh, that is disappointing. I don't know why. So I assume that the Twitch stream is working. I'm going to go and check. I don't do a very good job of this. I'm not good at this part, but I enjoy it, and I get a few folks that join. So thank you for joining. I appreciate you. This looks good. I'm gonna just check this real quick. My releases. It looks like I'm just waiting on the Windows release, which should happen. Planning on making a custom GitHub action. Well, what I did was I made, oops, down here, I made, I think, let's say target initializer plus plus help. I made this, add the multi-architecture builder support. So what does that mean? If I take a project, let's do this as an example. Let's go to start.spring.io, and I'm going to do it with Maven because my initializer plus plus only works with Maven today. And let's just build this example. Spring Shell example. And let's add a dependency. Let's add the GraalVM support. Let's add Spring Shell. And that's it. That's all that we should need. So let's generate that Spring Shell example. Jar, everything else looks good. I hit the button, I get a Spring Shell. Good. Now let's do this. Unzip that Spring Shell. And let's just kind of show what we've done. So we went to start.spring.io. The whole point of this initializer plus plus is like after I've done my Spring Shell or my start.spring.io, I want to do, wait, let me go and use the latest version. So what I'm going to do is this. Nope, not that one. I'm going to do sudo install. Oops. File 1, file 2. All right, so if I do sudo install target initializer plus plus, I want to install that app into user local bin initializer plus plus. Cool. So all I did was put up the latest version. So now I have initializer plus plus version. Hopefully it's 0.0.30. Good. So now I'm going to go over to this project that we just started. We just grabbed this from start.spring.io. I'm going to do this git init so we can see the actual changes. Git status. Cool. Let's just git add. Initializer. That's where we got it. All right, so we're cool. Now I'm going to run initializer. These are the things. These are the default things that I do. I add extensions. So now it says, hey, successfully added these. And what does that mean? These are things that I do all the time. I added the Maven plugin that gives me the operating system bits for when I'm building because I do a lot of native images, and native images need the operating system and the architecture. So OSS or OSX, ARM64, OSX, x86. So this gives me the ability to kind of get that out of the box with my plugin. Or no, that's actually this one. JGitVer does the version part. The OS Maven plugin does the operating system and architecture. The JGitVer is how I do releases. So with JGitVer, I showed it earlier. What I'm doing is in order to stamp out a release, all that I'm doing is I'm adding a tag. Maybe I did it in the other window. Where I just say, hey, git tag. I tagged the version, so I put the tag on my repository, and then I push that up. And once my release happens, so then my configs, they're only going to happen. My workflows only happen when there is a tagged version. So my processes, my build, my release, it doesn't happen on every commit to main. It only happens on a tagged commit to main. So that's one of the things that I do is that extensions. One of the other things I do in my Spring Shell, I do the project dash version. and it says, hey, successfully changed project version to 0. So I do that in the POM because I use JGitver. So it actually, my project actually reformatted a bunch of stuff, but the main thing is it changed the versions. Let's show this. Git add um, extensions and project version. Cool. The other things that I do in Initializer++ project description. It removed the project description. So that's the one that we got from Start Frame Veil. I just remove it. And then the other thing I do is project name. Cool. Change the project name. So this is what I had. Oops. In the name, what I had before was Spring Shell, and I called it whatever. Group ID, artifact ID. So it's going to be com.example, Spring Shell. Little things that I do. But I don't want to have to remember all those things, so I put it into a Spring CLI. And then we have this. Let me do it this way. I can do like this. I can say help. So I can see all the things that I have available. And there was a cool feature. There's an option where I can modify the help so that it just doesn't as flat and it doesn't have them broken up into the groups. But the other one that we were talking about is this multi-arch builder. So if I just say multi-arch, what are my options? Multi-arch manifests. So I can do the multi-arch builder, which I think it'll do anyways. I don't think that'll change anything. Let's see what it did. Oh, it added my builder. So it modified this and it added my builder so I can do ARM64. And then if I do the multi-arch manifests, boop, then I go in like, uh-oh, it didn't make the GitHub actions. It did make the Circle CI ones. So there's a default Circle CI build. So I get a pipeline and it follows my naming conventions. So I could just commit this and then I'll get Circle CI builds. Cool, but it didn't do the GitHub action. I wonder if did I not complete that, or is that something that I broke? So I absolutely agree. Spring Shell is underappreciated. But I realized that I had a meeting scheduled. So this was poor planning on my part. So I'm going to go and do this meeting and I'll probably come back later. But so far, so good. Hopefully you enjoyed it. That helped, and we'll see you soon.